Hey, happy to be here. I am going to share my screen because I put together a little presentation for you all, and I'll go through it, talk a lot, but then we will have questions at the end. 'Cause I don't think I will be able to see the chat. So, Art, I can't see you, can't see the chat. If this is not pulling up, please let me know, but it looks good to me.
You are all good. I think we can see it.
Okay, you got the bubbles, you got the butterflies. Great, that's all I need.
Bubbles and butterflies. Yep.
Okay, you'll notice a theme. So hi everybody. I'm super stoked to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics, how to design a community you can charge for. As Art said, my name is Jane Stecyk. I am SVP of Marketing for Mighty Networks. Now, why should you care what I have to say about this topic? So Mighty knows a thing or two about building communities online. It's the only no code, added that just for you, platform that lets you create a business that's powered by community with courses, events, content, live streaming groups, memberships together. One place, you own it, iOS, Android. And then when you're ready, as many of our hosts are, you can ladder up, level up to your own branded app on iOS and Android. So we have built this product, hundreds of thousands of users, millions of members, and we use it in Mighty Community. This is our own community for people building communities, courses, and memberships. Very meta, not on Meta, on Mighty Networks. You can see a little screenshot here. It is free. If you are interested in what I have to say today, if you find it valuable, if you want to go deeper, please come and join us there. And I want to reiterate that everything I'm saying today and that we say in Mighty Community, it's all about building a thriving community anywhere. So we believe Mighty Networks is the best place to build it, but take these lessons today, take them to your Discord community. If you're still building on Facebook groups, cool, take them there. These principles are things that we've seen build thriving communities everywhere. And we teach them really in depth in our community design program. So we coined this term community design for online communities. We've been teaching this for 3-4 years now, started by our founder and CEO, Gina Bianchini, who also knows a thing or two about communities. She started a company called Ning before she started Mighty. And in it, we go really in depth on how to build a community so valuable you can charge for it and so well designed that it essentially runs itself. So you all are getting a little bit of the Cliff's Notes, a little bit of the sneak peek. But again, if you want to go deeper, come join us in Mighty Community. So hopefully you're like, okay, I think she knows what she's talking about. I thought I would start with why community is the best business to build. I'm assuming if you're here, you're interested in it, but you may be what we like to call community curious and not sure how much time, energy you want to invest in this, but you want to learn more. So I'm hopefully going to get you pretty pumped. Community is now more important than ever. And the reason why are these 3 truths that have always been true about community. So number 1, it is the single best way to navigate rapid change. So we are in a period of extreme rapid change, extreme uncertainty. People feel unmoored. And when people feel like that, they look to community. They look to other people who may not have all the answers, but they can navigate it together. Number 2, community is the single best way to build new practices. I think we have all experienced this when we want to start a new habit, a new workout routine, and it's so much easier if you have a buddy or hopefully a community around you that's pushing you forward, that's showing you new ways to do it, that's holding you accountable. Number 3, community is the single best way to pursue results and transformation. Again, this is because of that community, that accountability, pushing each other forward. There's this great alchemy that happens in community where 1 + 1 is actually more than 2 when you have a group of people together with shared goals, shared motivation, driving each other forward. So with all of that, I think you can hopefully feel like, okay, in the world we're living in today, that's rapid change, people looking for new opportunities, people looking to level up in various ways, community feels like a real need, a real necessary thing. And great news, we're talking about paid communities today. It's also a fantastic business because it's simple, straightforward, and less work than you think, delivers recurring revenue through memberships, subscriptions, naturally supports multiple revenue streams. This is what we do in our own community, right? We have a community, we sell courses in it, we sell programming in it, and it also supports our software business. Adds the opportunity to bring viral growth into your marketing mix. This comes from your members inviting other members. This is not something you see with a drop shipping business, for example. Requires minimal upfront capital investment. This is not, hey, spend $5,000 on inventory to kickstart this business. And no risk of supply chain issues. I don't know if anybody has ordered furniture lately, but it's a wild world out there. Not a problem when you're running a community business. And finally, much more likely to be viewed as an essential investment when people are cutting back on spending. And I want to spend a little bit of time here with some great examples, because I think when people hear subscriptions, they think about subscription fatigue. Oh my gosh, like, is somebody really going to pay for my community instead of Hulu or Peacock or whatever the latest streaming service is? And I want to encourage you to shift your mindset and think about this in terms of the results and ROI you're going to bring your members, because with these examples, hopefully you see how it does become an essential investment for people. And so these are all hosts who are building on Mighty Networks and who throughout this time of economic uncertainty have seen their memberships thrive, skyrocket, grow. Wealth Builders is a great example. It's started by a woman named Ashley Fox. And it's about building generational wealth, stress-free, debt-free, financially free life. Utopia, this was started by someone who I only know by their Twitter name, which I believe is the Wiz of Ecom, a pretty awesome name. All about teaching people how to build and scale profitable e-commerce businesses, marketing agencies. He has these learning paths, these courses, workshops, very, very cool. M5 Entrepreneurs, Mary Heffernan, who you see in this picture, she started her own business out of her family's farm ranch and realized she could also teach people how to do the same thing. So her business became teaching people how to run this type of business. And she has grown it into this amazing ecosystem of courses, community, workshops, accelerators, very cool, and help people, create new financial opportunities for themselves. Sober Sis, this one is more about health and wellness, mindfulness, changing your relationship with alcohol. So you can start to see how this would make a big difference in someone's life, and maybe a community that they didn't know how to seek out in person without being able to find this like-minded group of people online. And Christy Code Red. Christy's a retired boxer, personal trainer, and she has this incredible community about helping people reach and maintain their weight loss goals. And she brings them in with this challenge, and then they have opportunity to do coaching, all these upsells within the community. It's a really powerful business with great retention. And why I share these examples with you is you start to see, financial, health and wellness, mental health, relationships. We have a ton of leadership, career-focused communities on Mighty. They're successful because they are giving people results that are worth a very tangible amount of money. And some of them results may be priceless. So the equation does not become, oh, do I take my life back with Christy Code Red, or do I finish The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, right? It's like very different in how people are evaluating these purchases. So I really hope, I can't see the chat, but I really hope this is what you're thinking right now. This sounds awesome. I want to start a community, but why isn't everyone doing this? And it may seem like everyone is doing it because I think a lot of people are talking about community right now, but this is actually still pretty new. And the main reason people are not doing it is fear. and misconceptions about what it takes to build community. So I'm super curious if any of these sound familiar. I really wish I could see your nodding heads right now, but it's cool. Communities are hard to build. Ton of work, millions of decisions to get right, and that's even before you launch. You need to have a huge Kardashian level social media following. It's a numbers game. You're going to siphon off a certain amount of people. So you need to build that up before you can build a community. You need a ton of content. You got to have your videographer and your like hours and hours of professional video done before you can build a community. And that's not even talking about charging for one. If you're going to charge for a community, you need to have a lot of things. You need to have a large audience, and you need to be this super established expert who people show up to learn from, like a sage on a mountaintop. I'm not going to break all these myths in this session because we don't have a lot of time, but with the data we have at Mighty on, again, thousands and thousands of successful communities, we have not found these to be true. Even looking at the social media following of the top revenue generating communities on Mighty, we're not talking about in the millions to get there. It's actually very achievable because that is not the thing you need to start a community. So if you're interested in going deeper on all of these, again, join us in Mighty Community. But what I'm going to focus on are the building blocks you do need to get started, whether you want to have a paid community or a free community. And then hopefully I'm going to make the case for you that a paid community is the way to go, and try to reframe some thinking around pricing, how you price a community. I'll share some pricing mistakes that we often see, and hopefully get you excited with some benchmark data we can share. And I hope that sounds good. And I hope you're like, awesome, let's do it. So the number one thing you have to start a community is your big purpose. This is a term that we coined at Mighty, but it essentially just means this is the motivation for your community. This is who you are bringing together. This is what you're going to do together and the results they're going to get. And the goal of your big purpose is to paint a really, really vivid picture of your community. Now, when I teach this concept, or we teach it, typically people are like, oh, I have that. I'm like, great. What's your big purpose, Dave? And Dave is like, I bring together entrepreneurs to grow, share, and learn so that we can be successful. Sounds good on the surface, but doesn't tell me really who it's for, right? What kind of entrepreneurs? Are they just starting out? Are they experienced? What are their challenges? What verticals are there in? Doesn't really tell me what to expect in the community or what I'm expected to contribute to the community, right? Learn, share, and grow. Okay, how do I do that? And then to be successful, again, what does success mean to these people? How do you define success? Do you all have the same definition of success? It doesn't actually paint a vivid picture. And the fear we see is that people think, well, I need to talk to everybody. I need to get as many people as possible in. And so I want to start really, really broad so that I appeal to everybody. But the fact is, if that is your big purpose for your community, you're actually appealing to nobody. You are talking to no one because it's generic and it doesn't set the right expectations. So we came up with a formula that actually can get you to a very specific, vivid, and compelling big purpose. So I'm going to spend some time to take you through it. And if there's one thing you do today coming out of this session, you're interested in building community, spend some time here. We have a free guide on it in Mighty Community that goes into a ton of detail. Spend some time here and nail your big purpose, because if you do not, everything else gets harder. Marketing gets a lot harder. Getting your members to talk about the community gets a lot harder. Just absolutely everything. So your big purpose is, I bring together so that we can. That is the basic formula. And your goal here is not to write marketing copy as a marketer. That sometimes pains me to say, but this should be a long, detailed run-on sentence because again, you're trying to paint a very vivid, compelling picture. It is for your own internal clarity about what this community is for. And when you think about who you are bringing together, you want to start with a transition. Because if you recall, communities are so important in times of change and uncertainty, and we all go through transitions in life where we need communities. And this could be a really literal transition, perhaps somebody who's graduating from college and wants to enter a new field and get their first professional job and is unsure how to make that leap successfully. Or it could be more of a internal transition. Maybe it's somebody who is struggling with their attention and with their relationships and with their anxiety, and they want to transition to a more mindful and calm way of living. That is also a transition. And so what you want to think about is, what is the transition that you can uniquely speak to and bring people together? It does not mean you have to have it all figured out. It has to be that you feel a passion for this transition and that you are maybe a half step ahead, not that you have all the answers. Then you jump to results. So bringing together these people in transition into this community, if you think about a year from now, how are my members going to be operating differently? What is going to be different about their lives? That is the results. So when we go back to our example of Dave with the entrepreneurs who are going to be more successful, his transition could be entrepreneurs who are working day jobs, but ready to quit them and make their side hustle their main business. And the results they're going to get is they're going to have a successful launch where they onboard their first customers, and they're going to reach a certain revenue goal by the end of the year. You can get really, really specific and tangible so that people start to understand the definition of the results and they start to see themselves there. Awesome. Dave is already doing so much better. Then you bring these two together with the bridge. The bridge is the things you are going to do together in the community that get people in a transition to their results. And again, most common mistake we see is people being too generic. We're going to come together and learn, share, and grow. That doesn't tell me how I'm supposed to show up, what I'm supposed to do, what I'm supposed to give to the community in order to get these awesome results. So instead, think about what are some really specific things that people could do together. Could be, we're going to workshop growth strategies together. We are going to role play sales scenarios together, right? When you think about an entrepreneur, what do they have to do? They have to pitch, do their elevator pitch. We're going to practice our elevator pitches together. Help them see how the bridge gets them through the transition into the results. And so I could have shared hundreds of awesome big purposes. We have a library of a lot of them for y'all to look at. But this is just one, and hopefully you can see how it's pretty specific. So I bring together newish NFT collectors ready to level up. A bad version of this big purpose, which I'm sure we've all seen a lot these days, is I bring together people interested in Web3. It's like, what kind of people, how much experience do they have, what part of Web3, like what step do they want to get to? It doesn't really paint a picture, but newish NFT collectors ready to level up. Awesome. I know if that is me or not. To trade ideas, define what's next for each of us, continue to experiment safely. So if I was really writing this out and I was starting this community, I would go into even more detail here, but I wanted to make a pretty slide. But what trade ideas, what collections are dropping, when's the airdrop coming, where do you want to go from here? Hey, I want to start minting NFTs. Like, what's the best way to do that? Has anyone have experience? What's your experience been? Continue to experiment safely. I mean, I think Web3 is such an evolving space. There's opportunities to get burnt, like having this hive mind to discuss things with, to hear warnings, to talk through big ideas, I think is a really compelling activity for people so that we can increase the value of our holdings and stay ahead of a fast moving space, right? And you could add even more detail here. But I look at this and I have a much better picture of what I'm going to give to the community, what I'm going to get out of it, and if it's for me, than if I'm just looking at a page that says this is a community for people interested in Web3. Like, are we just hanging out? What are we doing here? Now, big purpose, transition, a big, big part of focusing on your transition and getting very, very specific and marketing your community and pricing it is your ideal member. So this is the person who needs your community the most right now. So I want you to think about your big purpose and your ideal member as two sides of the same coin, right? The big purpose is like the mission statement for your community. The ideal member is the person who needs it the most right now, and it has more detail even than it's in your big purpose. And you're going to use this in a really, really tangible way. So how do you identify your ideal member and start to paint a picture? There are a couple things to look at. Number one, life stage and transitions, right? We talked about this with the big purpose. What part of their life are they at? What is the transition they are in? Layer on demographic, geographic, psychographic characteristics. Again, people get so nervous about limiting the scope of their community. When I tell you there have been the most incredible businesses built on Mighty with these very, very niche and specific ideal members that are successful because they are so niche, I am not lying to you. One that comes to mind is for college age Christian women, looking to deepen their faith, who are in the Southern United States. And this community could have easily been built around Christian women, right? That might feel like it will appeal to most people, but because they have identified this ideal member and they've been so specific, not only is there more than enough to build 7-8 figure business, but they are able to provide the exact things, the exact programming, the exact resources, the exact community design plan that specific person wants. So please do not be afraid to niche down. Then you want to layer on these kind of more, mindset attributes, hopes, dreams, what they want to do. This helps you get to those results and the fears and misconceptions that are getting in their way. And you actually want to talk to people. And this can be hard. I get it. I am an introvert. But if you want to build community, you need to talk to real people. And an ideal member interview will provide so much value to you, especially when you're just starting out. And I guarantee you have at least 1 or 2 ideal members in your existing network. This is not having put out the call. Your existing network, your friends, your colleagues, your community, your friends of friends, you can start there and find these people. And you want to ask them those questions. What goals do they have? What 3 things are they Googling about this? What 3 questions are keeping them up at night? You can combo it. What are they Googling late at night about this topic? I know when I was a new parent, that was 75% of my time. What are their misconceptions? And then you start to think about, okay, what could my big purpose teach them about this topic? What steps, what actions could I offer them? So screenshot this, do these interviews, ask these questions, and I promise you, you will leave with a more compelling and clear idea of what the members you want to serve actually need from a community. And this is kind of what the output can look like. This is a real community on Mighty. It's for people who are newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And you start to see how Reggie's a real person. You can start to imagine the sort of programming they would do to combat these fears and misconceptions and get him to his goal, his goals, his results. Okay, so we have covered the building blocks, big purpose, ideal member. The goal for those is to have conviction and clarity and be specific. And the action is to talk to some of those ideal members that are in your network. I promise you, they are in your network. Now, I want to talk to you about charging for this community you're going to build. The things you need remain the same. You need the big purpose. You need the ideal member. They will make charging easier, but I want to layer on some other tangible things about charging for a community. And I think we all need to ground ourselves in this, which is that people pay attention to what they pay for. So in the fight for attention, in the fight for somebody's time, for their habits, charging is a superpower. You have the choice to turn on a superpower for your business, for your community. And in fact, we have seen in our data that the communities that charge for access have 50% higher engagement than those that do not, those that are free or freemium. Because people pay, they have more focus. They want to get their money's worth. They are attracted to the idea of the results that you are going to offer them, and they get focus in the community. They show up, they engage, they contribute. That makes it better for everybody in the community, right? Those engaged members make the new member who just paid say, oh my gosh, awesome. They're modeling how to engage. I'm excited. I want to jump into the conversation. Because they have that focus, they get to results quicker. They have better results. And because of those results, they become your ambassadors. They want to tell people about this thing that has improved their life in this tangible way. And they invite new members who pay, and the flywheel starts over again. We have seen this time and time again on Mighty, that this organic member flywheel is incredible and so much more powerful when people are paying attention to what they have paid for. Now, what do you charge? Maybe, hopefully, you're all in. You're like, great, big purpose, ideal member, gonna charge for my community, convince me. What do you charge? This is probably one of the number one questions we get at Mighty about charging. And we see the same mistakes all the time. Number one, the cup of coffee. This happens a lot when people are migrating, potentially like a free Facebook group or a free, newsletter Substack, and they want to bring it into a paid community. Oh, if I charge only $2 a month, they can't say no. That's less than a cup of coffee. They will say no, especially if you're focused on people who have been anchored to free, right? You should not expect all those people to just pony up $2 a month. They are anchored to free. Many of them probably haven't been engaging that much. Many of them are probably lurkers, looky-loos, just kind of popping in. And so you should not expect them to all say, oh, sure, $2 a month. The other problem with this is that it anchors the value of your community so low in somebody's mind. If you're promising these amazing results and you're saying it's going to be $2 a month, there's a disconnect there psychologically for people around, like, that's worth more, but they're charging $2. I don't know how this is going to fly. And it stops people from joining. Over complicating. One of my favorite quotes, tenets as a marketer, is that a confused mind says no. And I've found it to be true. So people think, oh, okay, I'm going to start this community. I'm going to have 4 tiers and then all these bonuses. I can upsell them at each stage. I think a lot of this could come from people who have built out businesses using something like Patreon, right? Where you're offering like reward tiers and you're leveling somebody up. And by all means, you can create a value journey with a community, a value ladder where you're like moving people up to like a really, really expensive, awesome offer. But do not start there, because you're going to spend way more time explaining the different offerings, walking people through them, than you're going to spend on providing the value they're paying for in the community. And the temptation in overcomplicating it as well is to overextend yourself and try to do too much. Typically, people are adding on all this content creation, which is not the point of a community. This is not about creating tons of content. And you are setting yourself up to not be as successful as you could be. Number 3, undercharging for results. And this is kind of related to the cup of coffee a little bit. Typically, this comes from, I'm not an expert. All I'm doing is bringing people together. I'm like maybe a half step ahead, but really, I'm still figuring it out too. So I'm going to start free and then add paid stuff when I figure it out. And this also, for many people, they're like, okay, like everybody's going to join. It's free. They can't say no. They're just going to come check it out. The problem with this and with freemium in general, you can do a freemium community. We've absolutely seen it work. It is way more work because you are talking to 2 audiences. You're talking to the people who are coming in for free and the people who are potentially willing to pay for something else, a more premium offer. Your attention is divided. You might spend all your time trying to move the free people into the paid tier when they may not actually be the same ideal member at all. So as you start to think about, I want to start a paid community, stop yourself from falling into these tracks. And I'm going to give you a way to think about it really, really simply when setting your price. You want to think about these 3 things: results, replacement, and focus. So the results are, what is the person going to get out of this community, which you've already outlined in your big purpose. You have lots of data from your ideal member interview. What are they going to get out of this community, and what is it worth it to them, right? Are they going to get a new job? That's worth a lot. Higher paying job. Are they going to get promoted? That's worth a lot. Are they going to, achieve some fitness goal, like a race they've been wanting to run? There's a great community called Slow AF Run Club on Mighty that is for back of the pack runners and helps them, complete these races they've wanted to do with a group of people who are at a similar stage. And there's a real value to that result for those people. So this could be a really tangible monetary result. It could also be something that feels priceless: health, wellness, relationships, spirituality, something that quite literally means so much to people that they couldn't possibly put a price on it. So you want to start jotting down those results and what they may be worth. Replacement. What would they have to replace your community with, or what are they using instead of your community today, and how much does it cost? This could be other courses they're taking, online courses where they buy a bunch. I don't know about you, but I have been a serial online course buyer, and they kind of just sit in my inbox. Could be all this money they're spending on the courses, books, consultants, therapists, trainers, coaches. Could be they're, spending money on quick fixes, hacks. It could be all sorts of things. So you want to write them all down. What would they have to replace, or what could they replace with your community? And finally, focus. So there's focus for your members, which we talked about. Pay attention to what they pay for. They have a more focus. There is also focus for you as the community builder. What would you have to pay yourself to have the focus needed to dedicate yourself to this community in a way that's going to get people to those results, get people those replacements? You can think about this even in terms of time spent. Your time is worthwhile, right? Are you going to do an event every week? That is time you're spending. How much would you have to be paid to make that worthwhile and really dedicate yourself to making it a great experience? I'm going to write all this down, and it will help you define a price that will be easy to explain and sell to your prospects. Now, what will help you do that is adding to your ideal member interviews and thinking about ideal paying member interviews. So add these questions. Can you quantify what this result would mean? What are you doing today? What's the last thing you bought? What's the best thing you bought? And you're going to start to get such great data that you can use to set the price for your community. Now, I want to leave you with a little bit more, speaking of data, which is actual data from Mighty, actual benchmarks, because we were really curious about our own customers, our hosts, who were charging, what their price points were. So we crunched the numbers. And we found that the average monthly membership cost for a Mighty network that's charging is $40 a month. And they offer typically a discount for an annual plan of like $280. So like a 30-40% discount. $40 a month, right? Not a Hulu subscription, not $5, $10 a month, $40 a month. Now, there are extremes. This is an average. There are people charging hundreds of dollars a month. We just had a host launch a community around live trading, stock trading, with a $150 membership. They had a phenomenal launch, $150 a month. There are also people charging less, but across the board, the average is $40 a month. We actually built a whole website around this called creatorscalculator.com, where you can go and kind of play with the amounts a little bit. And so $40 a month. This is a really helpful benchmark for you, and you don't have to pick 40, but I want this to help you reframe how you might price based on the results replacement focus, but also this benchmark that this does not have to be a $5 a month, $2 a month cup of coffee like community. And when you are charging $40 a month, it also helps you reframe what success looks like in terms of membership. So a ton of successful community businesses on Mighty hit this benchmark of 30 members. When you're charging $40 a month, you start to see how that can be really meaningful monthly income. And 30 members is a fantastic benchmark for really being able to start that flywheel of members inviting other members. And so when you hit 30, it's easier to go from 30 to 50 to 75 to 100 as you bring in more people who identify so strongly with your big purpose, want those results so badly, start to see those results, and start to invite other members. So $40, 30 members a month, those are some numbers to hopefully ground you in the realities of what a paid membership community could be, because I think people think, oh, it's only successful if it's hundreds of thousands of members, which is absolutely not the case. That is it. I'm leaving you with this. This is our framework for life of a community, and I'm leaving you on this slide before questions, because everything I talked about today, obviously we're using data and examples from Mighty, but we want to see more communities in the world. Like, apply this to your community wherever you're building it. And what you will find as well is that communities move through these similar phases in the life of a community. We go really deep on this in our other programming. But what I would encourage you to do, you're excited, you launch a paid community, you're going to hit launch reality, you're going to hit the dip. That's when you figure out what's working, what you need to revisit. Don't get discouraged. Do not stop there. Everybody experiences the dip. And if you know it's coming and can start to think about workshopping, experimentation, communities are a living, breathing human system. That's what makes them so incredible. You will be on the path to growth. So let's stop sharing my screen, but hopefully y'all got something out of this.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I love that last slide with the dip, because one of my personal favorite quotes of all time, and I don't know who made the quote, but it's always darkest before dawn, right?
Yeah.
Right when you think that, like, why am I doing this? No one's listening. What you're not realizing is that your efforts have been compounding. And yes, it is always darkest before dawn. And all of a sudden you'll see the fruits of your labor pay off. And I've seen that myself. There's been many days where I've said those exact words to myself. So I love that last slide. Thank you so much for that. There was a ton of great feedback and a ton of questions.
Oh, good.
So let's just hop into them, if you don't mind. And if any of them aren't able to be answered, then, we'll just sort of put a pin in them and get back to them. But I'll just ask these rather than going through trying to
Okay,
find them in
cool.
the chat. I took notes of all of them. So the first question here is, what's the advantage to use Mighty versus something like Discord or Facebook?
Yeah, I'm biased, but lots. But I will tell you the one thing we see most often in people who move from Discord or Facebook groups, because in many ways it's the same thing, ownership, right? You own your community on a Mighty network. You have the email addresses. If you want to move, cool. You can pick up those people and move them to another platform. And you are not at the mercy of an algorithm where, we see Facebook groups with honestly pretty big names and like hundreds of thousands of people, and their content isn't getting shown to people, their events aren't getting shown. And then we've had instances where pretty high profile hosts were like banned from going live at the last minute to big groups. So it's just more control and ownership. I will say with Discord, the additional thing that people are often evaluating is, do they want it all to be this fast-paced chat? Which I'm in Discord servers, like for the right thing, it's awesome. Like I like to basically hang out with people, right? I dip in, it's moving fast. I leave an emoji or something, right? You can dip in and out of chat. If you have a big purpose that's around getting people to a really specific goal, if you want to teach a course, you want to have like organized learning for people, and you want to be really welcoming to people who like may be overwhelmed by Discord, I think a more structured community like Mighty is a better choice. And you can also have chat, right? You can have the best of both worlds. But Discord is great. I think it just really depends on what you are trying to do, and if you really want to build a business and own the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Okay, so there's a bunch of questions. How do you plan a content calendar for your community?
Ooh, love that. We just covered this in our latest community design course. I'll give you a sneak peek. We offer this framework called a community design plan. So I don't have time to go into all of it, but essentially you want to think about how are you building a habit for people. So you want to have some consistency. I will say the most successful hosts of Mighty Networks are only posting 2 to 3 times a week on average. So this is not like, oh my God, like this is my life now. Every piece of content I'm creating, it's focused here. That's actually not the case, because with the community model, your members are contributing. The number one tip I can give you for running a community anywhere is ask a great question. Questions by far are the number one thing. We have a specific product feature for them, but just ask a question, whatever community you're in. And then they are the number one thing that bring people back into the community. And you see this cascade of comments, cheers, replies when you ask a really good question. And yet another thing we teach you how to do in Mighty Community, ask a great question.
Awesome. You touched on this a little bit, but do you have any benchmark metrics to see where a community is working? Example, cohort analysis.
Yes, we do in the analytics you get on a Mighty network. So we have cohorts. So one place I like to encourage people to look is, where are your active members? Like, are they mostly older members who've been there for a while? Are they the newer members? And, ideally you have a mix of both, but it can often be a place where if all your older members are dropping off, are you living up to the big purpose you originally had? Or have you kind of shifted focus and just along the way? Or if your new members are not engaging a lot, are you not setting them up for success with like great onboarding? Do you have your welcome checklist set up? Kind of those little things. Another benchmark we provide is essentially stickiness with weekly active members, daily active members, and you can look at the ratios to be like, okay, not only do I have a lot of activity during a certain event I'm doing, but people are coming back week over week or month over month. And we have benchmarks like in the analytics. You can be like, where is this good? Is this bad? And help you interpret them.
Awesome. Any way to add Web3 integrations, implement token gating, etc.?
I am so glad this could have been a plant, because I'm so glad this question came up. Yes is the answer. coming very soon, currently live in product, but we're beta testing it with some really awesome Web3 communities. But token gating is going to be a thing on Mighty Networks you never like to promise a date. The product team gets mad at you, but very, very, very soon is what I will say.
That's super exciting. I'm sure
Yeah.
that's going to make a lot of people very happy. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing with, not committing to a date. I know how that can be with product teams. So
I've gotten in trouble before. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Okay. What's the most and you touched on this a little bit, but what's the most popular subscription model? What seems to work best for your community leaders?
Yeah. Hopefully I answer this question, Glenn. I mean, I think the key learning for us, and we were frankly surprised by it, because we thought, okay, maybe freemium makes the most sense, but it is actually having a paid front door. So not giving access. Now you can give access through a free trial, which we encourage, and the data suggests that a 2-week free trial is like the right amount. You have lots of options. You can do 1 day, a month, whatever you want to do, but a 2 week seems to be the most successful free trial. But really having a paid front door, I think, because it brings focus to both sides, and you're not having to parse out the lurkers from the actual people who are committed to the community. And then when you are ready to build a value journey and add a little bit of complexity that makes sense, it's paid plus paid. So paid community, and you offer a great course inside of it to your members, or you offer a workshop, a mastermind group to your members. It's an additional fee. And if you decide to do that, you can bundle it up and sell it all to new people, like join the community, but add on this thing. Like, you can do that. But in general, starting simply is the model that works best for people, and charging at the front door.
Yeah, and in my experience with Mighty, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can get very deep in your offerings and how they're bundled and who they're available to. There's a ton that you can do. You're not limited to like a simple pricing strategy by any means.
Exactly. And there's even more features coming on that front, with some big changes happening this year that will just add more flexibility. I think it's something people want. And as that rolls out, and like as a marketer, as I'm hoping to like teach and educate people, my mantra will be the same, which is like, keep it simple to start. You can do a lot, but keep it simple to start.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Glenn, paid front door plus 2 week free trial. For me too, I always wonder what the right amount of time for a free trial is. So that's very helpful. That little nugget there. This is a more specific no code question. If you're not familiar with this product, just let me know. But does Mighty Network have an integration or plugin with Bubble.io?
Oh, I'm vaguely familiar with Bubble. We do not. Bubble's for custom app development, I think. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Web and app. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. We do not. If Bubble works with Zapier, we have a Zapier connection that people use in all sorts of fantastic ways. The ways I'm most familiar with are like connecting Mighty to your email provider or something like that. But if it connects with Zapier, there could be some interesting ways to use it. But in general, we think of we have Android and iOS apps. So if you build a community, courses, whatever, on Mighty, people can access it on iOS and Android. And if you want a custom app for your community, that's our Mighty Pro product. So some of the examples I showed, like Wealth Builders, for example, when somebody's using their community, it's white labeled, right? Like, they don't know it's a Mighty Network. It's the Wealth Builders community, the Wealth Builders app. So we have that built into our own product.
Yeah, and just to clarify one thing, if you're using Mighty on the web or mobile, that is fully white labeled and branded. It just would be like the mobile app that would be the pro product for the branding, right?
Yeah, and there's like a few places like powered by Mighty Networks that you would see on some of our like lower tiers, but in general, you could customize it. You can honestly more branding touch points than I think I've seen in any competitor, of like your colors, your branding, the imagery you can add. And then if you are not on Mighty Pro, what you tell your members is, hey, we have this great no-code devs community. download the Mighty Networks app and look up no code devs and you'll be right
Right.
in. And then once they open the app, they don't have to go through it again. They're just in the community. And if there are multiple Mighty Networks, they can just switch between them. It's really easy.
Awesome. Is there a rev share model that works for curators, ambassadors, content creators, etc.?
Oh, interesting question. So we've looked at building in like an affiliate program into the platform. Right now, people, if they do that, they typically will use Zapier to connect Mighty to something else. We have an ambassador program built in, so I use that word ambassador, which can help you reward members for inviting other members, which is a really cool feature. I haven't seen the rev share model. There's not enough people doing it on Mighty. And I think the reason why is likely you can't have like multiple Stripe accounts taking payment from one Mighty network. So if it's happening, it's probably happening in the back end. The main network creator and host who owns the Stripe account is dispersing the money. So we don't have a lot of data on it internally because this is getting very in the weeds. But when you create a Mighty network, if you want to charge for the Mighty network, there's a single Stripe account versus multiple people. It's not really like a marketplace necessarily.
Gotcha. Yep. That totally makes sense. If you wanted to do it, that there would probably be a way using a third-party tool, but because it's a third-party tool, you just don't have that much data on it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this question, I kind of saved this for last because you touched on this a lot, but how do you determine pricing for memberships, freemium tiers, et cetera? Would be so helpful to have examples of communities and what they are charging with market segments on pricing for each demographic, et cetera.
Oh, yeah. So we go into this a lot in our community design class. I can't give it all away, but I will say across everything, it's the $40 benchmark. Where you start to think about different verticals, I would start to think about ROI specifically. So this live trading lab that launched with a $150 monthly membership, they're making the explicit case of like, you will make this back in a certain amount, like through the things we teach, right? So you can start to see how they can charge a premium. And, there's certain memberships that are in the thousands of dollars because maybe they are, certifying you to be a coach in some area, which gives you a whole new income stream or help you take control of your health. There's a host called Zach Bush who does this journey to intrinsic health, and it's like an 8-week program. I think it is several thousands of dollars. So it does run the gamut. But again, I think doing that exercise of results replacement focus and then looking for other examples is the best way to start, because then you're starting from a place of like your big purpose, your ideal members, versus just trying to match another course. And during the replacement thing, you can absolutely look at, hey, what is this other yoga teacher charge for her community? Like that could be a benchmark that you use.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is sort of a follow-up, but David says would really need to track each creator's contribution and make a distribution based on something measurable like number of hours views, subscriptions. Would love to talk to Shane after. So I guess that's probably a good segue into closing this out. Just like what's the best way to get in touch with you if there's any additional questions and learn more about Mighty in general.
Yeah, I want to see everybody in Mighty community. It's free to join. And if I am the carrot that gets you there, awesome, because you can direct message me there. We have direct messaging for our members. So just go in there, start a chat, look me up, Jane Stecyk, and I will get back to you. And David, I would love to kind of understand what you're trying to build and see if we can help you out.
Awesome. Yeah. And hopefully, this is just maybe a little bit of a preview for the people who are still hanging on here, but hopefully in the future here, we'll do more of a product demo. So
Yeah.
although this session was like a gold mine, I think, if you're just more curious about the actual software, we can take a deeper dive into that in the future as well. So.
Great. This is so much fun.
Yeah, if there's not any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Again, this is recorded, so we'll put it on our YouTube channel. We'll email it out to everybody in our community. So yeah, thank you so much, Shane.
All right, bye everybody. Nice to meet you.